This is the Search for the Sound. I'm Ross Holmes,
My name is Jason Anick.
and today we are joined by one of the most creative and recognized fiddle players of our era, the one and only Brittany Haas. We're so happy you're here, Brittany.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. You've been an inspiration to, of course, us for so long, and it's a special thing when your heroes are also your peers and they're your friends and they're the people you go have a beer with and go grab lunch and take a walk around the park. And so it's a treat to have you here. And though you're in Nashville the same as me, it's been hard to see our friends over the past year. So we're doing it digitally now.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we've crossed paths, and it's too bad, but I hope we can change that for sure.
Yeah, me too. That would be great.
Well, before
Yeah.
we go any further, we've got to listen to Brittany play. So we'll cut to a clip of her band Hawktail. So Brittany, how do you pronounce the name of the tune? On Bjorg?
Yeah, very good.
On,
Something like that. I never know exactly, but I say Anbjorg, but Anbjorg I
and
think would be appropriate as well. It's it's
tell us about the tune and of
yeah.
course your band Hawktail.
Sure. So this tune is from our album that came out at the beginning of last year, January 2020. It's called Formations, and this is the first track off of it. And the tune is obviously original. We wrote it, but the name comes from a fiddle player from Norway, Annbjørg Lien. And she is a beautiful Hardanger fiddle player that's been an inspiration of mine for quite a while. She came to the Valley of the Moon Scottish Fiddling Camp when I was a kid. Grew up going to that and just was totally blown away by her playing and her tune writing as well. And she plays the Hardanger, so that's often pitched up a whole step. So this tune is in B, and it's kind of imitating that sound a bit with the melody, and then the rest kind of combines some funky rhythms and stuff coming from the bass and the mandolin and all that on top of it.
I love that you're emulating Hardinger. For folks who are listening in, tell us just a little bit about that instrument, why you love it, and how you go about kind of emulating that sound.
Yeah, so it's the Norwegian traditional instrument. They do have regular fiddles there as well, but they also have these ones that you may have seen photos of them. They're quite beautiful as well in just their aesthetic look. They have a lot of mother of pearl inlaid into various parts of the instrument, and then they have 4 strings on top. So I play a 5-string fiddle, but if you can imagine the 4 strings on top and then 5 sympathetic strings running through the bridge and under, like kind of in a tunnel underneath the fingerboard. So you can tune them as well. And they're tuned sympathetically to some of the notes within the key that you're in. So often the tuning would be on the strings that you're bowing on. So pitched up a whole step and also high bass. So the G string would be up to a B. And then I actually don't remember what the sympathetic strings are tuned to, but they're kind of like not just chord tones, like diatonically tuned to notes in the scale.
They kind of create that like kind of reverby, drony effect.
Yes.
That sustain.
Kind of, a lot of ringing.
Yeah, it sounds like a built-in concert hall in a way, which is really cool. And do you do some kind of alternate tunings to create that extra ring in your own fiddle when you're trying to emulate it? Do you mess with the tunings?
Not here. In other times in my life, I have tried to do that. But with this tune, I just played it out of standard because that was kind of easier. And sometimes, I mean, I've done a lot of cross tuning in the old time traditional music, but I've also done a lot of staying in standard and kind of playing lots of double stops as a way to stand in for that without having to physically change your tuning and change your mind around the tuning to find the right notes. So like this tune is in B, like I said, and I just do a lot of barring of the first finger and octaves and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So you were talking about the fiddle camp earlier. You grew up surrounded by some of the most amazing musicians. What are your earliest memories of the fiddle, of playing, of hearing it?
One of the ones that really has stuck with me over the years is of hearing Bruce Molsky for the first time. And I heard him at that same place where I met Anne Bjork, the Valley of the Moon Scottish Fiddling School, which is in California near where I grew up. And it's run by Alistair Fraser, who is a beautiful, beautiful musician and just kind of a community guru. Like he's been bringing people together around the fiddle for quite a long time. I think his camps even predate the Mark O'Connor fiddle camps. They've been going on for 35 years or so. Yeah. And he always brings in 2 other fiddle players from different world fiddling traditions. So there's a lot of just kind of melding and learning about different styles there, as well as at Mark's camps, as I'm sure you remember, Ross, because you grew up at those too, right?
Yeah, I think all of us went to O'Connor camp at some point in time.
Yeah, we were just reminiscing about that. Yeah, I think I went a number of years, like 2001, 2000, around that time, 2001, 2, 3, 4, around that time.
Cool.
And yeah, just being surrounded by so many amazing fiddle players doing so many different things with it is so inspiring. And so I can imagine, you know, when you were growing up around that, it was a big part of your inspiration. You were surrounded by these different sounds, different traditions.
Yeah, and just kind of having access to all those people, because I basically just got obsessed with the fiddle, you know, at like 8 or so. When I first heard it, I was taking bluegrass fiddle lessons from Jack Tuttle and going to the Valley of the Moon camp. And then I heard Bruce play there and just totally fell in love with old time music and his style of playing it. But yeah, I remember being a kid and running around and like just being giddy to get to be around those people, and like Mark and Daryl, and you know, they were just like people that are just walking around at fiddle camp and you can talk to them in the lunch line or whatever.
And of course jamming all night. So yeah, so much absorbing of music, great music, good community. So pretty early on you probably were like, I want to be this is it. I want to be a part of this. I want to I want to, you know, continue in that path.
Absolutely. And that was kind of where it also became clear that was a path that you could do for your life. You know, because like you're in school and studying, and I don't know, I didn't come from a musical family. My parents love music, but they didn't play much themselves. So it was kind of just a fluke that we happened to fall into that. And I think the fiddle camp community was what made it clear that was something that you could pursue to that degree of devoting your life to it.
And because of your interest in old time music, obviously the sound of, I mean, it's tuned the same way, but most of the time, well, often in standard, but with cross tuning in particular, it changes the timbre of the instrument. Was it something about the way that the instruments were cross tuned, or just about the drawl of that old time sound that was attractive to you, or was it just the melody? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I think a combination, but definitely the cross tuning was a total revelation because I'd never heard that before. And the rhythm of it, I think the kind of just like setting of that tone that's so constant throughout, where it's just the groove is so crucial to the overall sound. So yeah, that was pretty moving.
To tell us about the fiddle that you're playing, because it's
Yeah.
I mean it's like your trigger, you know, your your sidekick, ultimate sidekick, and it's been
Totally. Yeah, I've had this for a long time. I got it actually through Fred Carpenter after one of the Mark O'Connor camps where I'd met Tyler Andall and Mike Barnett, and they at that time were kind of following Casey Dreesen around and learning how to triple chop and stuff like that. But they had 5-string fiddles, and I'd never seen one of those before, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was 14, I think I said that, and just wanted one desperately. And Fred happened to have one of these instruments in his shop. It wasn't actually this one that I've got here now, but it was made by the same guy who's John Silikowski. And so I found that through Fred. It was one that somebody else had turned in to get a different fiddle. So I got that, and then a few years later, he had a newly built one, and he was like, "Do you want to check it out?" And I fell even more deeply in love with this one. It's let's see, it's dark in here. I think it's the 26th 5-string of John Silikowski. So it's younger than Casey's fiddle that he plays on. And I forget where it falls, like with, because Michael Cleveland also plays one. But anyways, I just completely fell in love with it, and it does feel like my sidekick and my, you know, best friend and musical partner. Like I've had this instrument since I was like 16, maybe something like that, quite a while.
Oh wow.
So I've really grown around it, and it feel very connected to it in terms of the sounds that I make.
Do you have like another 4-string that you use to play around, or you just it's always five or bust?
It's been 5 or bust for quite a while. I did come into a 4-string a couple of years ago through Brian Christensen and Brandon Godman at the IBMA. I just played one on a table that I really liked and ended up buying that. It was kind of in a time where I was a little bit less stoked about my own fiddle, which I think is just a natural thing, you know, where you're like, I don't sound very good today.
Yep.
And then you know, I was getting worried about it, and so I was interested in that other fiddle, but I ultimately am still playing this one all the time. But I am happy to have a 4-string, and it's cool to go back to that and remember kind of like what about the 4-string works so well and is so just fundamentally fiddle, you know, like digging into the G string, which you can't really do on a 5-string.
Yeah. It's so fascinating when you like with you who have played the same instrument for so long. Like, do you remember its different phases, or has it been pretty consistent? Because everyone talks about like the opening up and breaking in fiddles. You've lived it, or has it just been so kind of a gradual and it grows with you that's so hard to tell?
Yeah, I would probably say that. And just I can't remember all of it that clearly, but I think it has a pretty distinctive sound that it has had all along. Which I don't even know how to totally define that. And maybe putting it into words is not even necessary, but it's very much its own thing. It's really even, which I really like about it, and I think is a difficult thing to do with or to build into a 5-string, you know, like, because you're dealing with a lot more, or you know, not that much more range, but enough that like some builders would say that 5 strings are kind of impossible because you need a viola body to get the depth out of the C string. But I think mine somehow is just really great across the full range. You know, great E string, great C string.
That's really true. Some makers have experimented with blowing up the size of the body to accommodate the 5th string. I know Jonathan Cooper has done that. And actually the Silikowskis, the 5s that I've played, they're essentially the same size as his standard 4s, but they, you know, around the hips, around the bouts, they get a little bit wider. For no other reason than to accommodate just a bit bigger neck, you know, because you're right, it's not that much more, but in the violin world of things, it is. There's a big difference in a 5-string neck and a 4-string neck, and just the mass that accompanies that thing, and that adds so much to, I guess, that the growl of his fiddles. That's why Casey Dreesen and Michael Cleveland and you and so many of our favorite musicians play his fiddles. It's like it's a thing.
Sure.
What kind of bow are you using?
It's the same bow I've had forever. It's made by Alfred Knoll with a K.
Does it is the feel of it because you're able to draw into the C string? Some of the players that we've talked to that venture onto the C string as well on their 5s are they're, I guess, originally thought that maybe a heavier bow would be the more practical thing to be able to draw the sound out, but come to find out my assumption was incorrect. Is this a heavier stick, or is it?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I've always liked heavy bows. I'm not sure how much heavier it is than the average bow because I don't really know what that is, but yeah, I'd say it's on the heavy end of bows I've tried.
It just works.
So what were you saying about it's not true that a heavier bow helps you dig in more?
No, I'm saying that my assumption was that exclusively heavier bows would do that, but some of the players we've talked to prefer a lighter bow so that they can like glide through the string a bit more. Sorry if I didn't.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That, and I guess it is a personal preference thing. You know, how we all choose to feel the strength through the bow, and lighter, heavier. Jason just got a new bow and it's on the heavier side, and it works as he was saying. You know, feels
actually
comfortable.
From I got this new bow from Tyler. Speaking of Tyler, cool. Andel, coming full circle. Yeah.
He made it.
Yeah, he's such a great bow maker. So I actually got some wood, some Permabuco like blanks at an auction, and he's been making bows from it. And there's a one that he's just like, yeah, you're gonna love this. So he sent it up. I just got it yesterday.
Wow, so exciting.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. We've been talking about this fiddle and your bow. Can we hear just a little bit? I know it's obviously different from like a recording, but it's kind of nice just like to hear it, even via Zoom.
Yes, why not? I'll give you a better picture of it too. Should I play a tune? Like, do you want me to play for a while, or is that enough?
I mean, it sounds great. Let's hear a tune. Let's hear a tune.
Concert time.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can make my leash a little longer. Let's see. my fingernails.
Sounds fantastic.
What's that
Thank
tune?
you. The Last of Sizemore from Sanford Kelly, Eastern Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Salty. The way that your fiddle speaks it's so big, and you're so right. It's clear. It's even through the whole instrument. I know you weren't really going down to the C string, but when you kind of played it a second ago, it was, man, it just rang out. The power of the low end isn't overshadowed by the top end. You're so right. Pretty rare, I would imagine, with a pop.
Yeah, I think so. I like it.
Tell us about the like the on the scroll there. I know you've over the years have had all sorts of different little designs and like little creatures sometimes.
Yep, yeah. I used to have a pig monster back in the day when the Claridges and Daryl were kind of spreading those around. They're like the pencil heads, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy arms. But this is it's a rose actually that my mom made out of paper, and it's been on here for quite a while, so it gets a little smushed in my case, but still on there. It doesn't really get in the way most of the time. Sometimes it rattles a little, but
I love it. It gives it a little extra something, you know. Oh, that's awesome.
What do you have coming up for 2021? It's, of course, last year was difficult for everybody, and it's hard to know what's coming for this year. What's on the books?
There's a few things on the books, and you know how the books are these days. You never know if something's going to stay on the books, even when it's on there. But yeah, as people get vaccinated and festivals are kind of figuring out if they can still happen safely. So there's a few things like that with Hawktail. We made a record that came out last January, and had like a big year of touring planned, of course, which didn't happen. And so now there's a few things that had been bumped back a year that will hopefully happen. And we're going to make some new music as well soon. And aside from that, I guess I haven't really made too many plans. I've been kind of keeping it open. I actually have a part-time job. I just did a degree. I got a master's in social work, which is a bit of a left turn for my fiddling, but I kind of had been thinking about it for a while and just kind of wondering about the other things that are out there. And it seemed like kind of a cool idea because I was wanting to stay home a bit more anyways and kind of explore what it's like to have a life in a town that you stay in for more than like 5 days at a time. I'd been on tour a lot over the past 15 years, and I've loved that lifestyle a lot, but I was curious to kind of expand my experiences by staying home a little more. So that kind of worked well with the grad school. And now, oddly enough, the pandemic hit right about when I was finishing up. And so I just went forward with that for now, and it's been really cool. And I don't know, I've heard a lot of people say that because I've struggled with like the openness of a life as a musician. Like when you are home, it can be really hard to be like, okay, I need to work on this, and you end up like booking your tours, and then you're like, I don't even feel like playing my fiddle today or whatever. But so I've struggled with that kind of like imposing structure. And I've heard people say that like when you have like something else to do, it actually makes you way more productive. And I think that's kind of like happening within me right now, where I'm like, the wheels are turning more in the musical department now that I have these restrictions on the time that I have free. So yeah, kind of getting excited and in the early stages of planning my next moves outside of the Hawktail stuff.
it's so great to hear. And social work is so important as well, and it's so needed. It's and such an important thing that you can be doing for people. And it's so interesting to hear that, like, having like this kind of balance life is enriching the music, because sometimes when it's just completely open-ended, it can be tricky. Like, what do I do now? I have so much to do, but it's hard to. But if you're like, all right, I do this, and then I, devote this. It's like, I think I do some of that with like my with teaching, at Berkeley. It's like, okay, that's these days, and then, can kind of balance around that. But I do remember those, like, before I had like something somewhat regular, and I was mostly just touring as well. Yeah, it can be, the open-endedness can be daunting, and it can be fun at times where it's like, I don't have to do anything today. But it could also be the opposite and be like, I have so much to do, but can't quite pick myself up to do it despite having all this free time. But I think it's also really important for people to hear, because there's a lot of up and coming musicians who they have that as well, and they need to hear that. It's that everyone's balancing things in their life.
Totally. Yeah. And I've done a little bit of teaching lately. It's been really fun as a way of kind of getting re-excited. And actually, I was curious, Jason, because I stumbled on your dad, I think, the book he wrote.
Which one?
David Reiner, The Old Time Fiddling Across America.
Oh, yeah, that's my dad, yeah.
Cool. I didn't know your dad was a fiddler as well until seeing that.
Yep.
I need to get a copy of that and study it.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. My dad and the Reiner, the Reiner family, we go way back. So I grew up about 30 minutes from them, and there was tons of crossing over of holidays and of course jam sessions, and yeah, between that and all the other camps, I definitely also grew up around fiddle.
Yeah. Did you like study old time as a kid with your dad, or was it more like you were kind of just doing your own thing?
I definitely studied some stuff. I was doing what was more what they call like New England traditional, which is like this grab bag of styles. Like you there's some competitions that I would be doing each summer. And so you'd have to do a reel and a jig and a hoedown. And it was like kind of more like you'd have like kind of dip my toes in all these different styles. So I never went down the full on like that next level Bruce Moseley and what you're doing, the old time. And I kind of want to. I mean, I'm so fascinated by it, and I love it, and I feel like I'm kind of ready to do that. I've been such like jazz like minded so much, and there's so much that old time has to offer, and I love listening to it. So I've been thinking about hitting up Bruce more and trying to figure some of it out.
Cool.
So the question that we certainly ask all of our guests, and it seems like you're pretty sorted out with it, but I'll ask anyway. Are you still searching in ways for the sound? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I guess, my answer, because like you said, I do kind of like my fiddle is my fiddle, and I feel very connected to that and like the sounds that it makes. And I think because a lot of what I got into early and was able to learn from, because you mentioned Bruce Molsky, who was like a mentor to me, but my other mentor was Daryl Anger, and he kind of comes from the like Vassar lineage, and like definitely has a lot of Vassar-isms in his playing, and I would say both of them have like the most distinctive fiddle tones where you hear one note and you're like, that's exactly who I'm listening to. So that was kind of emblazoned in my mind, like just your fiddle is your voice. It's the way you express yourself. So you might as well sound like yourself on it, whatever that means to you. So like I can remember the fiddles that Daryl was playing when I was taking lessons from him, and like just how distinctive those were. So I guess I've always like felt that the addition, like, you know, you can like pick up somebody's fiddle and you play a note on it and you kind of sound like them, like that's such a powerful thing, and that's a lot of what I love about my own instrument. But in terms of the sound and like what that could mean beyond just the instrument, some things I've been thinking about lately are well, okay, so within the old time stuff, there's so much rhythm, you know, with the bow, with rocking the bow and pulsing and stuff like that, that is such a cool effect. And I think I've been just so deeply into that for such a long time that I've forgotten about like the other ways, the other approaches to bowing. And another fiddler that I really love listening to is James Bryan. And his style is just so totally different than that, you know, so smooth. So I've been thinking about kind of seeking that sound, or trying to add that sound to my toolbox. And I don't know, bowing in general is such a wild, wide world of possibilities. And with the different styles, like sometimes you can get a little bit pigeonholed by them, like by what feels comfortable and what suits the melodies and stuff. So if you can like break out of that by doing something different, it can be really eye-opening. And I've been just for fun learning these Irish tunes. I actually was learning the guitar part from Micheál O'Donnell to these like live recordings with Kevin Burke from the 90s, I think. But his bowing is so beautiful and so totally different than anything that would ever come out of me naturally. And a lot of it's like starting phrases on up bows. So that's something that I want to learn how to do. So I know that's it's a sound, you know, like the way you bow things is going to really affect the emphasis of how the phrases fall and stuff. So that's something I want to be working on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's you've shared such beautiful things, and hearing about the relationship that you have with your fiddle, it's so special to talk with musicians who have had basically the lifetime of your career has been on a single instrument. And the sound that we hear on this Crooked Still record, or Live from Here, or, you know, Hawktail, that's Brittany, and that's Brittany's fiddle, and it's singular. It's so special to hear you talk about that. Thank you for joining us and sharing all of this wisdom, and you're an inspiration to us all. Totally.
It's very sweet. It's been fun to talk with you guys. See your faces.
Next time it's got to be after everybody's got their shot and we can play some tunes.
Totally.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for joining us, Brittany. This has been absolutely beautiful and special. It just means the world you joined.
Thanks for having me. It's so great that you're doing this. Thank you.